So, by the way, Nick Brown, our Attorney General here, he has the so-called Immigrant Worker Protection Act. And what it would do is it would allow illegal immigrants to get 72 hours warning before ICE inspection. So Brown insists it should be transparency translated. It gives, this is what it's written from, where is this coming from? The Saddle Red. Oh, from Jason Rance's stuff. Yeah. Okay. Brown insists that it should be transparency translation. It gives illegal workers a head start to hide, flee, or get their documentation in order. The AG's office even makes claims the bill will let workers make plans with their families because nothing says compassion like undermining federal law. So that is the, what's the, what are they calling that thing? Oh, by the way, they want to spend about $400,000 to outreach groups to teach illegal workers on how to avoid ICE. I was talking to somebody, a really nice lady, found my email, my personal email, and her name is Carol. We had a nice back and forth, and she thinks that there should be, at a certain point, that you just, after 5 years or 10 years, you just, it just goes away. There's no charges. Just let people stay. So I had a nice exchange with her via email. And I said that ultimately what you want to do is incentives or disincentivize somebody's behavior. You have to have two things in place. One, you have to have a secure border. And two, you have to enforce what I think is E-Verify. Because the reason somebody is on the other side of the border is because their life sucks. And they're like, okay, my life sucks here. I'm not making any money. It's really horrible. I'm going to risk going to the United States. Then at that point, there's the risk-reward ratio that the individual has to sort of work out in their head. Chances of being caught, was it, during Biden, 0. Chances of getting a job, pretty high. Chances of keeping the job, also pretty high. I'm willing to risk. I'm going to pay the coyotes, as George Bush used to call them. I'm going to pay them $10,000, whatever it is, to get me across the border. I'm going to sneak into the country. I'm going to get a job, and I'm going to have a better life. Do the equation, do the math. If I were that guy, I'd be like, yeah, I'm getting out of here too. I'm going to go to the United States. But if you had to E-Verify, which is basically that the federal government and the state governments would verify that everybody who is hired is legitimately somebody who should be hired. If they have a working visa, is the visa up to date? And are they keeping up with the responsibilities of that visa? If you verified it and you close the border, then the risk of being caught, much higher. Chances of getting a job, much lower. Are you willing to take the risk? The person says, no, it's not worth it. I'm not coming. That's the only way to control it. Prior to 1914, everybody came to America, and everybody seemed okay with that. There was no problem with that. But once we start to provide services for people, then now people don't want people coming to America because, as Milton Friedman said, you can't have open borders and have a welfare state. You just can't, because then somebody can come here, they can get medical, they can have their kids educated, they can get housing, they can get food. You can't have the two. If you want to have a welfare state, as we have, you cannot have open borders, because then you just have everybody coming. Most people I know that when I worked in the restaurant business, the hardest working guys were the Mexicans in the kitchen with me. You had the same experience, right?
Yeah, no, the elementary school I went to was 75% Hispanic, and almost, I think, basically every kid to a man had illegal immigrants as parents.
Yes.
But don't you think now that they've secured the border, they blame Biden and everybody that came before him for allowing everybody to come in? So shouldn't they look for a system that says, come out of the closet, show us who you are. We will make an effort. You got in when the defense was weak, and
yes,
and we'll try to make an effort to allow you to stay.
Okay, so then this is what I wrote her. See that? Thank you for the lead in. Okay, I said they must register with the state and local government. They must learn the language. Is that too harsh?
No, I think at least
Canada, Switzerland, Australia, they all demand you learn the language. And the UK, they just pass a law. You set a time limit for them to learn the language and pass basic reading and math test. A civics test is also required. Create a system that rewards each step of education, perhaps financial penalties in the form of fines that would be paid by the employer and the immigrant combined if the process is not made. If the employer assists in the effort of the employee, they can be rewarded with tax breaks. If legal immigrant does not comply and makes no effort to improve, they face deportation. Secure the borders, enforce E-Verify, register, create a database, educate, and deport those that do not improve or comply. There. And then those that are already here, Guess what? You got to register. You got to do this. You got to learn English. You got to learn about the country. And then you're on your path. You're on your pathway. Then if you actually learn about civics and you learn about how our system works, then you're educated and possibly you move forward to citizenship. And then it's like, hey, welcome to the country. If we are importing people that have a fourth grade education, which unfortunately is the majority that have snuck into the country, they're not going to, it's not fair to them. You're setting them up for failure. That's not fair. You let them in, they get in, they have a fourth grade education, they can't read, they can't write. They're going to be stuck. There'll be wards of the state. And that's not fair to the citizens, and it's also not fair because we need an educated workforce, especially in the next 2-3 years as more and more advances occur.
But we also need like a hard, low skill labor workforce too, right?
In service.
Yeah, or agriculture or whatever.
Yeah, but we have 1% of the immigrants that come into the country actually work in agriculture, and most of them get a special visa as a temporary visa to be able to do the work. There's a guy I met. He's the Cheesecake Factory waiter. He has been in this country now for 14 years, and I said in between bites of delicious food there at South Center, I asked him about it. And he said, well, it took us a long time. We filled out all the paperwork. We had to wait. We had to apply, and then we had to pay a certain amount of money. And then finally we got here. And then he said, in every year, they think it was first year, he has to fill out all these forms, and then 4 years, and 5 and 7. So every 5, 6, 7 years, he has to fill out all the forms and keep everything up to date. I said, does it bother you? He said, no, I love my country. I love Mexico, but I love America as well, and I don't mind following the rules. I said, what do you think about the people that jump the line? He said, I have no patience for them. We went through this process, and he goes, and they give all of us a bad name. Everybody that snuck in and everybody that's trying to work underneath the system. He said, but I follow the rules because I really appreciate what I have here. And I don't want to get caught with a DUI. I don't want to be involved in domestic violence. I don't want any of that stuff because then they'll just take that visa that he has to be able to work and poof, send him home.
But like you said, the risk was so low for so long that you can hardly blame somebody.
Oh, I get it. Listen, again, think of the human being as a human being, not as an immigrant, not as a Mexican, not as somebody from Honduras or Venezuela. That person's there, and they want to be able to support their family. If they can come to America and get a job and make more money and then send a portion of that back home again, they will do that. But there's also people that have come to this country that have no intention of doing anything other than enjoying the fruits of all of our labor. And those people, bye-bye.
Venezuela.
Yeah, same thing.
Don't you think?
We spend $150 million on illegal immigrants, undocumented people, to provide their health care. Everybody okay with that? That's in the state of Washington. You okay with that? $150 million? You know where it comes from? Crazy. I'll try to tell you in 1 minute. So they do this little trick, and by the way, in the big, beautiful bill, they cut it out. Here's what happens. The state is the hospital bills the state. The state goes to pay the hospital bill, but then taxes them as well, and then the hospital pays the tax. What it does is inflates the cost. So let's say Bob Smith goes in and it's $100,000, but when you work the taxes in there, it's more. So then the federal government through Medicaid says, okay, what's the bill? The bill's $100,000, and the state goes, yep. And in that is also a tax. They've taxed, so the tax is included in that, which only increases the cost. So then the federal government goes, all right, I guess we're going to pay all of that. But what they did was they built a little cushion in there, and the federal government came in and paid it. And then what happens is the state takes that part, and it ends up being about $150 million or something, and tucks that aside. And that's how they get around having the federal government pay for undocumented, because the federal government, through Medicaid, does not pay. So that's the little trick California uses, Washington uses, and now in the big, beautiful bill, they're going to take it from 6% down to 3% and eventually get rid of it. It's not fair. Listen, it's the amount of money that we spend on healthcare in the United States is ridiculous compared to the rest of the world.